Hey everybody, welcome to another podcast, Think Your Way to an Epic Life. And the lady I get to interview today is a real honor for me. I have looked up to her for my entire career, and the fact that she's going to sit down and talk to us, I think is super cool. I'm sure you've heard of her, you know of her. If you're in the real estate industry in Albuquerque, New Mexico, you know of this woman. She was once called by a good friend, John Schnorr, the nicest lady in real estate. Alice Tozer, welcome.
Thank you. I don't know that a lot of people would say that, so that's nice that John thinks that.
Well, he's a pretty nice guy.
Yeah,
He's a pretty nice guy.
Consider the source.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you got to do that. So tell us a little bit about Alice. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Ohio, in a little tiny town, 1,200 people, and it was on the outskirts of Columbus. So that's where I lived in the same house pretty much my entire life until I went to college.
Wow.
Then I graduated from Ohio State with a degree in home economics, which my ex-husband says was all theory, no practice. When we got divorced, he took the sewing machine because he would use it more than I would.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Home ec was your degree. Wow.
Right.
So what was your goal was to...
My goal was to either be a county extension agent or to be a home ec teacher. However, when I graduated from college and got married, and my ex-husband was in the Air Force, and he was stationed here at Kirtland. So we got married in January, drove out here, and then I could not find a teaching position. PNM, which I can't even remember the name of the company at that point. It was not Public Service Company of New Mexico, maybe, I don't know. Anyway, they had a position as a home economist, and they narrowed it down to another person and the other person got the job. So that was the end of my home ec career. I did do some substitute teaching in California when we were stationed in Sacramento, and I remember I had mid-schoolers, and they started a fire in the trash can, and it was like, okay, this is not for me, and then I would be standing there and they'd say, "Where's our little teacher?" And they were actually bigger than I was. So,
oh gosh.
Yeah, it was short-lived.
Okay, yeah. That mid-high is that's a tough age.
Yes, it was tough.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not my forte.
Okay, so but I know some stuff about you, and I know that you have 320 adults that are coming to you for help. Mm-hmm. And you can handle that better than some mid-high kids?
Mostly, right, yeah.
Why would you say that is?
Well, I mean, that's not always the case. I mean, sometimes, they say they've got that phrase, herding cats, and sometimes I feel like that's my life because there are various times of the year when dues are due that, you have to keep calling and badgering people, which that is like the worst part of this job. And then same thing with E&O insurance. There are various times in the year I feel like a bill collector, and I don't like that, calling people and asking for money. But other than that, yeah. The thing with my particular job, nobody ever calls me and says, "Oh, I just want to let you know Kara did a great job on this transaction." I get calls from the other broker. I get calls from our buyers, from our sellers, and everybody's unhappy about something. So my job is try to diffuse that and not escalate it. So I try to get back with them as quickly as possible. Sometimes, I'll answer my phone up until like 11 o'clock at night. So I don't sleep many hours. So it's hard to wind down. After, hearing all that all day long, at night, your mind's still racing.
So how do you go to sleep after that?
Well, I sleep sporadically. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I see you get up in front of the sales team, in front of the whole office, and you're speaking, you're having to tell us about form changes, about things that realtors have been sued. You're having to tell us about things that are not that pleasant.
Right.
Yet somehow, you always at the end turn it around and do something adorable and make everybody laugh.
I'm not even aware of that.
Really?
Yeah, no, I wasn't. I remember Tina Eberly told me one time when she used to be our qualifying broker and the team leader. She did both. And she would tell me, she said, I don't know how you do it, but sometimes you have some way of conveying bad news to people, and they say, oh, okay, that's all right. And I don't know how I do that, but I just ask for discernment all the time. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. It gets answered.
Yes.
It gets answered
Right.
because I can't imagine doing what you do and taking calls until 11 p.m. That is, and okay, so everybody, Alice is the qualifying broker for the Albuquerque Keller Williams with 320 agents. That's
322, 325. Yeah, it varies on a daily basis.
Yeah. So it's a big job. I am a recovering qualifying broker, and I have so much respect for this woman. It is just, I don't know how you do it. How do you keep your fun? I mean, you're a fun person. You're fun, enjoyable to be around. How is that possible when you're dealing with everyone's problems?
Well, you have to let it go. You can't take anything personally. I mean, sometimes people will call and they'll be yelling at me, and I know they're not mad at me, they're mad at the situation. So you just have to stay objective, and you have to keep calm. You know, typically what I do when I'm talking to somebody, I'll ask them, I'll say, I'm going to be writing notes, taking notes while we're talking, so I may ask you to slow down so I can get all the notes. And then it's interesting because they suddenly de-escalate because they think she really is listening to me. So that helps diffuse the situation as well. And then I'll repeat back. I'll say, okay, this is what I heard. Is this actually what happened? And then they know I'm listening to them. So that's the most important thing. People want to be acknowledged. They want to know that you're listening to them. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what's one of the funnest things that you've gotten to do where maybe it was heavy when it came to you, but you were able to lighten it up?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Being on the Southwest MLS Board of Directors and on the GAR board, I think that has been, it's a meaningful thing to do for our membership, but those have been fun memories too. Getting to know people, traveling to an NAR conference in San Francisco with Hubert Hill and Washington, D.C., and Orlando. So you get to know other realtors on a personal basis, and it's so much easier when, as a QB, you have to call another QB and you know them personally. We're able to work out things a lot just because we know each other on a first name basis and we respect each other.
Very important. That is, I went to Alice before I became a QB and asked her for advice because I had so much respect for her, and that exact advice is she said, go get to know the other qualifying brokers, get to know them, make sure they know you. And it was worth its weight in gold, that advice. So pay attention, guys. Get to know each other. Relationships are everything. So take me through your real estate career. How did you end up at this pinnacle right where you are now?
By default.
Okay.
I'm one who likes to be behind the scenes. And Tina Eberly was always pushing me, you need to be the QB. When she was a QB and the team leader, she would defer to me and say, Alice, you handle this, and that kind of thing. But I was like, I never wanted the title. It's like, I'll answer the questions, I'll do the work, but don't make me the qualifying broker. And then Tina had some back surgery and needed to step down. So she said, okay, you got to do it. So since 2012, I've been the qualifying broker here. I have 5 different licenses because the Real Estate Commission requires you have a license for each location. So I have 5 licenses. Up until that point, I started out at Hootenstall back in '72 at their front desk. That was a job, the only job I could get, and they didn't want to hire me because I was a military wife and would be moving. So I was there 3 years, which was longer than most of the other people. And then I was the relocation director. At that point, it was called Miss Relo. So I had that background, and then we were transferred to Sacramento, and I decided, okay, I think I want to get licensed. So did residential real estate there. Then Doug Vaughn, who had worked at Hootenstall with me, called me in California and asked me if I would want to come back to Albuquerque and do relocation for him. So I said, well, I'm going through a divorce, so I will talk to you about it. So then I thought, oh, well, I liked Albuquerque, so then that's how I got back here, was through Doug. And then I did relocation for him. Then I did office and retail leasing for a company out of Phoenix who's no longer here in Albuquerque. And then I sold new homes for Inman, and then resale, and then went to work for Sharon McCullum, and then Max Sanchez, worked for them as transaction coordinator. And then Tina hired me to be the concierge and write ads. So when Coldwell Banker had an office down in Valley, Tina and I both worked there. So then they decided that they were going to close that office and move Tina and I to Cottonwood. And it was like, we don't want to do that. We live on this side of the river. We don't want to drive over there every day. So then Tina got an opportunity to come to Keller Williams. And at that point, she went down for Mega, I don't know if it was Mega Camp, family reunion. Anyway, she decided, Keller Williams might be the way to go. And I was filling out my unemployment for Coldwell Banker because they decided since the office was closing, they didn't need my position anymore. So she said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm filling out my unemployment
You
papers."
sounded just like her. What are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. And so she said, I found out about this company, Keller Williams, and it seems like a good deal. So there's only one position that we have, and that would be as the Market Center Administrator. And there's a little bit of accounting involved. And it's like, yeah, well, in home ec, you didn't have any background in accounting, but it's like, okay, there's just a little. Well, what she either knew and didn't tell me, or she didn't know either, it was all accounting at that point. So I did that, and they said, well, when we get to 125 brokers, we'll get you an assistant. And I said, when we get to 125 brokers, you're going to find somebody else for this position. This is not my idea of a good time. So I did that, I guess, 2 or 3 years. And we did find somebody. And then I think my position at that point was assistant team leader. And then, as I say, when Tina stepped down, then in 2012 is when I became a qualifying broker. So.
Wow. Oh, my goodness. Boy, Tina is I love you, girl. She is such a uniter.
Yes, she is.
She just sees that you're supposed to be in this spot and makes it happen.
Right. And we complement each other really well. We have different strengths and weaknesses. So
absolutely.
It's a good relationship.
So
we tease that both Tina and I have been together longer than we were with either of our husbands.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun. It's good to have good friends long term, right. And that you get to work with them. And because is it hard? You say you take calls until 11. Is it hard to have friendships outside of work?
No, I have dog friends. I have a Weimaraner, so I have friends from the Weimaraner Club of Albuquerque, and then from church. And then Bob and Jackie, the Suttons are, Bob works here at Keller Williams, but they're like my family. Right. So when my mom and dad passed away, Bob said, you need to join our family. So I pretty much go there every Sunday for dinner, included on all the holidays. So that's my family, and those are my friends.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is amazing. So. Very, very blessed, no doubt. So if someone who knew you back when saw your life now, what would they be most surprised by? I don't know, because I'm going back for our high school reunion. We decided this isn't one of the big years, but we decided since so many people are passing away, we probably need to get it done sooner than later. So I'm going back in September for a reunion, and I think probably most people, well, for people that haven't seen me for years, they know who I am because I look and talk like my mom. So, people then say, oh, yeah, you're Ellen's daughter. Yes, I am. So I don't know. Back then I was a cheerleader. I was in every club that came along. I was in Future Homemakers of America, and just, GAA, Girls Athletic Association. That was before Title IX. So I don't know that anybody would be real surprised. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's pretty amazing, like what you've accomplished in your time in real estate when you didn't have a real estate degree, you didn't even have a business degree, and you are very involved in running this market center. Mm-hmm. So what does a day in the life of Alice Tozer look like?
Well, I do want to caveat here. I am like the least techie person in the company. So, this morning, some people were asking me about various techie things. It's like, if it's about command or something like that, I'm not your person. So I know what I can do well and what I cannot do, and tech is one of them. So typical day is, there will be times where people call me before 8 o'clock, and usually people apologize if they call me on Saturday. I hate to call you, but it's like, no. If it's an issue for them, we need to try to get it resolved. Right. So I don't worry about if it's before 8 in the morning. If it's an issue for them, then and I can help them with it or I can resolve it, then let's get it done sooner than later. So and the thing is, I've been licensed for 47 years now, and it's hard to say what a typical day is because every day is different. And I think that's why I can continue doing it, because when I leave the house in the morning, I never know what my day is going to bring. Just like yesterday, we didn't know the office was going to flood. So every day is unique. There is no one size fits all kind of day.
So is it ever boring?
Never boring. No. It's interesting because sometimes there'll be like multiple problems in the day, and you handle the first 5 or 6. It's not a big deal, and then number 7 comes along. It's not any more difficult than the first 6, but it's just like you're just zapped at that point. You're exhausted, and it's just like it takes more out of you. So, and then by like Thursday, it's like I feel like I've been talking, like a marathon. And by Thursday night, I usually need just to regroup, and then I stay home Friday night, and then by Saturday, I'm ready to go again. I just need that one night to recover.
I was going to ask you, what is your recovery? How do you do it? And someone who's listening, who's just, if they're hearing it all and they're in this industry, are blown away with what the responsibility that you take and you take so seriously. And I can tell you, as one of her brokers, when you need her, she's there. And it's a luxury I didn't have before you, so I love it. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful. What would you tell somebody who wants to become a qualifying broker? What would be some things that they need to know?
I think it's so critical that you have to know there are always 2 sides of the story. When somebody calls you, and sometimes I get amped up, it's like, oh, that's awful. I'm going to deal with this. And then I hear the other side, and it's like, okay, so there's both sides, and then there's maybe the actuality or the truth is in the middle. So I think my main thing would be you just need to stay open and listen to what everybody says. And then don't jump to conclusions, which is difficult to do. I have pretty high standards for, QB. And so
what are those standards?
Well, I want them to care about them as much as I do. That's it, primarily. Yeah. And to just, there are times where I lose it, on things. You can't help it. Everybody's human. But just to take it so seriously. Because these are so many people's lives. Everybody who comes to us deserves the best service we can give them. So that's what we need to do. So whatever I can do to help, I do.
Okay.
Am I able to solve everything? Maybe not, but just the fact that they know you're working on it eases them well.
Well, you constantly have to learn and grow. So you have seen so many more transactions than I have in my 20 years, in your 47. So many more. What out of all those transactions are you still learning?
Every day. Right. No, every day there's something that arises. Because people say, "Oh, I bet you've heard it all." And it's like, no, I really haven't. There are still things out there that
shock you.
That shock me, yeah.
So what skills does a heavily practicing realtor possess that the rest of the world would not expect? Like, what is required?
I think just to keep in mind that the goal. So many times a realtor will say, my seller's not going to do that, or my buyer's not going to do that. And it's like, well, have you asked them? We are not agents, we're transaction brokers, and we cannot speak for our customers. So the main thing is don't take it so personally. And what I tell people is our relationships with our fellow realtors are going to last a much longer time than the relationship you have with that one buyer. So we need to keep in mind the buyer wants to buy, the seller wants to sell. Sometimes the realtor is the one who gets in the way and blows it up. So I just try to get back to, okay, everybody wants to move forward in this. How can we accomplish this? So, and it's usually give and take on both people, but you've got some people out there that it's my way or the highway. They draw a line in the sand, and it's just like, they don't want to give, but that's not what's best for their customer. So,
yeah. Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're doing great.
Okay.
You're doing great. Okay, so what hints do you have for someone who's in the corporate world who says, I want to get into real estate?
Well, now would be an interesting time to get into real estate. I think people who've been in for the last couple of years are going to have an adjustment because we're going into a shift where, I'm seeing houses that are on the market longer. I'm seeing price reductions. And for people who've only been in business the last 2 years, they haven't had to go to a seller and have that conversation with them that, we may need to adjust the price, have a price improvement, what we say. And so that takes some skills. So I think right now, the best thing for people to do would be to role play and have scripts for the sellers and for the buyers. I mean, the buyers have been trampled on these last couple years. They haven't had an opportunity. I mean, we have people who are buying houses sight unseen. They're paying more than the appraisal. They're waiving inspections. All my feeling is, those are issues for a buyer that we shouldn't be seeing. So now that's switching. It's still a seller's market, but not to the degree that it was before. Okay. So I think those are the conversations to have. And with interest rates rising, that's another. You're going to have fewer people in the market. Sometimes people are going to say, well, maybe I'll just stay in my own house, I'll remodel, I'll wait for the rates to come down. So you've got to have skills, which, I'm not saying you didn't have to have skills the last 2 years, but you need to hone those skills here going forward.
So in the last 2 years, what did your skill level need to be, 1 to 10?
Well, you were like an order taker. It's just that there were times, I think one of the brokers said he'd written up 10 offers for a buyer. So what I suggest is you call the listing, if you're representing a buyer, you call the listing broker and say, what is your seller looking for? Is possession, would they like to stay in after closing, which I never like, where sellers stay in after closing, nor buyers moving in prior to. Although in the market we've had, that's sort of been what we've been dealing with. So find out what that seller wants. And sometimes maybe if it's at the end of school, they want to stay till the end of May or whatever. So find that out and write your purchase agreement based on what the seller's needs are.
So preemptive instead of just, I'm going to write an offer. How many realtors do you think do that? Write this offer and they never even called, and by the time they send it over, it's under contract.
Right, it's under contract, or they don't call. This is another thing we've had both ways. They don't call to say, hey, I've sent you a purchase agreement. Please confirm that you received it, because there are times where, we had one recently where our listing broker never got it, and the buyer broker was calling to see why they hadn't heard back. And the listing broker didn't even know, wasn't aware of it. But the buyer broker hadn't called to say, hey, be looking for this purchase agreement. So, and it could have saved them a lot of time if the property is already in pending or they're in the midst of negotiating another contract. It's just like, let's move on. Let's not get the buyer so excited about that, and then suddenly they can't have it, and they compare every other house to that one.
Right. See, that's what it is. It's not even just the time that the broker is saving themselves. It's what they're doing to the client. That's so emotional. They fall in love with the house. Their kid has picked out their own room, right. And it's so stressful anyway. What level of stress do you think most people that are buying and selling are under?
Oh, very high stress. Typically there are other things going on in their lives. Maybe they're moving to Albuquerque. They've lived on the East Coast, so Albuquerque's new. All they know about Albuquerque is what they read in the news. and they've got children who are leaving their friends, going to a new school. I mean, that in and of itself, and then starting a new job where you don't know what you're going to be doing, or whether you're going to like it. So I mean, it's the process, and moving, just getting kids here, dogs here, or that kind of thing. I mean, I don't think people realize how many moving parts there are. And for the realtor, we're a small part. There's so much that we don't have control of in the transaction. We don't have control over the appraiser. If that appraisal comes in low, we got to deal with that. We don't have control over the inspections, or if the seller's going to be doing any repairs, or to what degree they're going to do repairs. So, I mean, you need to do a lot of research before you jump into it, and sometimes people get so excited, oh, I'm going out for a listing. But do your homework. Get a listing package and find out who's on title.
So why should someone not do for sale by owner?
Well, I mean, I think they're going to lose money by not hiring a professional. I mean, they probably have they have no idea of the value. So, and then who knows when somebody's coming to your door. I mean, think of the risk of, opening yourself up to somebody who sees it on Craigslist or Zillow or wherever. I mean, I can't imagine why anybody would let their family go through that. Yeah. And then sometimes if somebody's moving, then the spouse is already on the job, and the, remaining spouse is here with the children. And it just, for sale by owners, you pay for it. You think you might be saving money, but you're not.
I also heard that of all the lawsuits, like for sale by owners make up 8% of the market, and they make up 40% of the lawsuits. Does that sound an outrageous number?
I don't know, because, we typically don't work with a lot of for sale by owners.
Yeah.
And I think now, with the market changing, for sale by owners are going to have a more difficult time. So they need realtors more than now, as do builders. Builders there for a while were pretty cocky about, we don't need realtors because we have people, on a waiting list for houses. That could be changing. So you'll suddenly see builders bringing in cookies and cupcakes, offering bonuses.
They love us again.
Right, exactly, yeah.
They love us
Very
again.
fickle.
Well, when skill is required.
Right.
And not that skill, like you said, not that skill was not required in the last several years. We had to learn everything brand new. We had to learn, what are some of the things that we had to learn because of COVID?
Well, I think primarily even showing houses, having open houses, that kind of thing. We had to change the way we did business. And realtors. I mean, fortunately, in New Mexico, there were only a couple of weeks where real estate was not considered not mandatory, but required or whatever. And during that 2 weeks, that was really hard for me to work at home because I'm a very social person. And it's like, I don't like this. And a lot of our realtors had that same issue, working from home, and then couldn't put people in the car, open houses. You had to have people stay outside while you had one group in. So, I mean, there were a lot of things that we just had to learn on the fly.
There you go. So it's not like it was easy or we're saying anything. If you had your best 2 years ever, that's amazing. It was a very stressful time and you did great. We're just saying that the skill level going into this next market. So how does somebody sharpen their skills, Alice? How do they get themselves ready for this?
Well, we've got Shift. Read the book. It was written several years ago, but it still applies. Scripts. I think that's so important. Just to role play with other realtors about situations that are going to arise.
Right, so that it's not the first time and you don't look like a deer in the headlights.
Right. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, skills are everything. I think I'd heard with NAR, we have 1.5 million realtors in the country, and Kathy Colvin, who is on the NAR board, said that she'd heard that I think 20,000 would probably be getting out of real estate. 20 or actually it was 30,000, And Gary Keller thinks it could be as many as 60,000 that just, are going to have a difficult time. So the, fittest are going to survive.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So what are some hints for somebody who's saying, I want to get fit? Where do I go? What do I do? How do I get there?
Hire Kara as your coach.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
No, truly. I think everyone needs a coach. Yeah. Whether it's for life, for fitness, for your business, you can't do it by yourself. This is not an individual sport. So you've got to have help.
Gosh, that is such the opposite of us independent realtors. We don't need any help, right?
Well, yes, the reason people get into this is because of independence. You think your time is your own. It's not. When you're first getting started, you're going to be putting in a lot of hours. And the interesting thing with real estate, the longer you're in the business, the more you're going to be working, because you're going to have people who are going to be searching you out. And it's not like, I can be in for 10 years and suddenly coast. You got you got to keep it up, because you're going to be busier than you were then. You just have to work smarter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the teams come in. You get a team and you have somebody else help you with that heavy load.
There you go. Yeah, I would say I could not agree more. It is definitely not an individual sport. Not for the long haul. Right. There are people who do it, and there are, the outliers in any industry, but for the most part, it is definitely, you have to have so many strengths that you really ought to have someone else who's much stronger in these areas than you are in some kind of a capacity. So coach is a really good way to start, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think it becomes a quality of life thing. Yes, you can work 24/7, but, ultimately, is that what you really want to do? So, it's more fun when you have a team, too.
Oh, a lot more fun.
Yeah.
A lot more fun. Okay, so tell me about this grandbaby of yours that we have a mutual friend, Wanda, who just showed me the cutest, most defiant little picture.
Oh, yes. She was born at 27 weeks.
27 weeks.
Genevieve, right. She was 1 pound and 3 ounces. She fit in my son's hand. That's how little she was. So her due date was May 27th. She got out of the NICU on May 25th, so she's now home. She's gone from 1.3 pounds to just 9 pounds. So we FaceTime every night. They live in Pittsburgh, and I'm going to go back and visit her in September.
Oh, my gosh.
So I'm working in the high school reunion in Ohio, and then I spend a few days in Ohio, and then I'm going to go to Pittsburgh and stay with them and then fly back.
That sounds so beautiful. Yeah. I bet you cannot wait to hold that sweet baby.
Yes.
Oh,
we FaceTime. She recognizes my voice.
So it was pretty hairy there for a while.
It was very scary. She had a hole in her heart. They had to put in a mesh plug. She came home. She was still on oxygen. So she's come a long way.
Oh, my gosh.
She's a little fighter.
Yeah. And she had Grandma doing some serious knee mail.
Yes, absolutely, yes. As people from all over the world.
Amen.
Friends in South Africa, Gallup. There were literally people all over the world praying for her.
The power of prayer is undeniable.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember once, I think it was in the 80s, a Time magazine, that the cover of it was The Power of Prayer. Mm-hmm. And you can't, little girl is walking proof, not walking yet, but she will be walking proof. She's sitting up proof, saying, hey, I'm telling you.
She's going to be a force.
Oh my gosh, I know. When you have to fight. So what are some of the things that you've overcome that you're most proud of in your life?
Well, I think I always felt like I needed somebody to depend on. And during my last divorce, I found out that I really could do things on my own. I didn't have to have or need another person. It'd be nice, but I didn't have to have that person, that I was strong in and of myself. And that was awakening, an eye awakening.
What a feeling, huh?
Yeah.
It's much better to be interdependent than dependent.
Right.
Yeah. And we here at KW are very interdependent, but we're also very independent. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty nice mix. What is your favorite thing about being at KW?
Well, it's like a family. people from the industry, title companies, other realtors, lenders will say, we love working with your brokers. They're so professional, and that's, we truly do have the best brokers in the city, bar none. They're top-notch professional, and it's just, I can't rave enough about our brokers. They are just wonderful.
Well, they love you too.
Oh.
And it's a big part of why we are who we are is because of your leadership. So thank you so much, Alice.
You're so welcome.
Are there any last tips you have for anybody, anything that you think people would like to know that would help them in their career?
No, the only thing, my philosophy, it's not a matter who's right, it's what's right. So when you think about, okay, what is right here? It's not about who's right, and sometimes the who's right gets in the way. But if you think about, okay, what is the right thing in this situation, a lot of times things resolve themselves.
That right there was brilliant.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely brilliant. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. You're welcome, Kara.